Hi everyone! I am going to be reading the January 14th entry on all three books, Courage to Change, One Day at a Time in Al-Anon, and Hope for Today. It is on page 14. You can follow along or you can listen. Page 14, Courage to Change. I learned in Al-Anon that I'm bound to fail to make someone else stop drinking because I am powerless over alcoholism. Others in the fellowship had failed as well. Yet they seemed almost happy to admit it. In time I understood. By letting go of this battle we were sure to lose, we became free. Gradually, I learned that nothing I did or did not do would convince my loved one to get sober. I understood intellectually, but it took time before I believed it in my heart. Frequent Al-Anon meetings, phone calls, and reading of Al-Anon literature were indispensable to this learning process. Later, when my loved one chose sobriety, I found new ways to apply this principle of powerlessness. Although I was tempted to check up on the number of meetings attended and to protect the alcoholic from anything upsetting, I had accepted that nothing I could do would make or break another person's sobriety. After a while, I saw that my fears had little to do with the alcoholic. Instead, they indicated that I needed to work my program. Today's reminder: when I am able to admit that I am powerless over alcohol, my life becomes more manageable. Today, I will take the path to personal freedom and serenity that begins when I surrender. Quote, our spiritual growth is unlimited and our reward endless if we try to bring this program into every phase of our daily lives. That quote is from the 12 Steps and Traditions. That is the topic of surrender from Courage to Change and Healthy Detachment, letting go, letting God. Moving on, I jump right over to One Day at a Time, January 14, page 14. If someone dislikes me or resents something I have done, I ought first to consider whether it was I who generated the dislike or resentment. Was it something I did? Is it something I should make amends for? If so, am I inclined to justify what I did when it really wasn't right? Answering these questions will give me good practice in being honest with myself. If I was hurtful and I make excuses to myself for what I did, I am building a second wall between me and the person I injured. Let me tear the first wall down by being honest and honestly acknowledging my fault. Today's reminder: what a relief it is to acknowledge that I am only human, that I do make mistakes, and that I am willing to correct them. I can't help liking myself better after the air has been cleared. In solidifying a friendship, I become a better friend to myself. Quote, God help me to avoid the temptation to deceive myself by justifying my actions when they were wrong. Make me strong enough to do what I should to keep me serene. Yeah, that definitely hits home with courage, having the courage to change on there. And honestly, having the desperation, the gift of desperation, to have that courage to change is huge, very huge. That's where spiritual advancement really comes from. I am moving on to Hope for Today. Sorry guys, I'm not having a lot to comment on these because I am very tired, but reading these definitely help. Hope for Today, January 14. One of the most valuable skills I've learned in Al-Anon is to discern acceptable behavior and to set limits with others. Setting boundaries helps me take care of myself in relationships and keeps me from being a victim. Responses to boundaries help me evaluate the quality of my relationships. Nevertheless, I still feel some trepidation when I set limits. I fear that the other person may become angry and end the relationship. I experienced different forms of abandonment during my alcoholic upbringing, and it's not a feeling I relish re-experiencing. Sometimes dread prevents me from setting limits. Other times I state my boundaries in overly rigid terms, hoping I'll never have to deal with the problem again. My best success comes when I set my limits one day at a time. For example, my spouse watches television late at night and often unintentionally wakes me when he comes to bed. Depending on how my day went, sometimes this bothers me, and sometimes it doesn't. I no longer set a global, black and white boundary with my spouse. Instead of saying, from now on, when you watch television after 11 p.m., I'm going to sleep in the guest room, I ask him, are you going to watch any more of that show? If he responds affirmatively, I tell him I'm going to sleep in the guest room and bid him a pleasant evening. In this way, I care for myself, and I don't set myself up for resentment. I leave options for both of us, which makes our relationship run more smoothly. Thought for the day. Boundaries don't help me when they're too loose or too rigid. If I set them flexibly, one instance at a time, they can help improve my relationships. Quote, Al-Anon taught me the difference between walls and boundaries. That quote is from Courage to Change, page 201. So for me, this entry talks about self-care and abandonment. Part of it, it says, I experienced different forms of abandonment during my alcoholic upbringing. It's not a feeling I relish experiencing. Sometimes the dread prevents me from setting limits. And so basically it talks about how to be responsible for me, my decisions, my own thoughts, and my own attitudes. And the fruits, the kind of reactions I want to produce in my life. Basically what I can handle. What are my values? And this reading is really about setting boundaries, healthy boundaries, and not overreacting. If you are still listening, thank you so much for staying here with me. Please hit subscribe. Al-Anon is an anonymous program. We are not affiliated with any sect, denomination, or political entity. And if you need help, please go to a meeting. If you can't get to a meeting, you can do call-in meetings. There are numbers you can call around the clock for recovery. And also, you can get sponsorship and literature ordered and delivered at your door anytime. Go to the Al-Anon website, Al-Anon family groups, and there are multiple and abundant source of audiobooks out there as well. There are apps. With Al-Anon speakers and AA speakers, those are free apps that you can listen to or even purchase if you want some more recovery. And yeah, basically sky's the limit for that. If you have any advice or any comments, feel free to do so. Hit subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you. God bless.